Hey guys, Paul Morrow here again doing big news recap for Tuesday, 16th September. Here we go. First of all, I did the 5 tonight. We covered the Charlie Kirk story, which is ongoing and which is now passing into the reaction phase, and where we're seeing this horrific series of reactions, not just in the private sector among people who are on the internet, etc., but I think more importantly among media figures. And you're seeing the frustration and bitterness of a media monolith who is shocked to see the beginning, more than the beginnings really, the ongoing demise of their exclusive domain. They just are having a very tough time coming around to the fact that they no longer control the narrative. And in fact, they're becoming the outliers. But what is becoming apparent from where I sit is, look, both sides have their crazies, both sides have their extremes. We all know that. But nowhere near as many on the right, and nowhere near as much a majority part of the party. The Democratic Party now is the party of the Democratic Socialists. I'm sorry, it's the Mamdanis, the Tim Walzes, all of these guys. And when you consider that Tim Walz, who was, as I said on the air today, he was almost vice president, this guy. Kamala Harris was arguably in the running for president. I know Trump, he trounced her, but she was the nominee at the end. And this is a woman who was participating in and advocating for bailing out the people who burnt down our cities in 2020. This is who the party is now. And this idea that, the both sidesism just doesn't fly anymore, because it's not a long way. It's not a far continuum from those folks to some of the people now who are trying to be apologists for the shooter of Charlie Kirk. I mean, look at Tim Walz, for instance, who made those horrific statements about, I woke up today and Donald Trump is still alive, and don't worry, it'll happen to some nonsense like that. I forget the exact quote, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's all over the internet. That was done after 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life. Say which one about Donald Trump. He can be blunt, can be sarcastic, he can be very cutting, but he doesn't advocate for killing anybody. He doesn't joke about that. That stuff is far more mainstream in the Democratic Party, and it's also far more funded. And that, to me, is the big distinction. When you hear this both sidesism, remember where it's coming from. And these days, it's coming from the base of the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, but it is. And you're seeing it now in the apologists. They're proving Charlie's point every day. Now, before I go on, I want to make a quick distinction between the federal case and the state case, because I want to clarify some things. There's a lot of confusion about this, and I've been asked about it. Look, this is a state murder case. Right now, under the facts that we have, this should be a state murder case. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a failure for the feds. You get the sense that the feds want in on this case. If you're hearing it coming out of Washington a bit, from various areas. And, look, the idea that somehow or other it has to be federal, I think that's a misconception among the general population. This case will move faster and more smoothly at the state level, even as a capital murder case, than it will federally. Federally, in order to do a murder case, you need another charge. They call it the federal hook. And just look to the Mangione case. Mangione, the federal hook, was a stalking charge, and it's not a great fit. Will it hold up? Probably. But, it's not a perfect fit. And the reason they did it is because they didn't trust the New York courts, and they didn't trust Alvin Bragg's office. And in light of the fact that today, the terrorism charge against Mangione at the state level was dropped, which was a charge I felt was entirely justified, and which I think very well may be appealed if Bragg decides to do it. I think that proves the point that going with a federal prosecutor appointed by Donald Trump in New York was a better move. You don't have any of these problems in Utah. The state guys really seem to have their arms around it. The charges fit. They said they're going to go for the death penalty. Do it. Get this guy in jail, expedite the case, and put him in front of a firing squad. And, you remember something. If it ends up being primarily a federal case and they take the lead, this guy who's going to have all kinds of GoFundMe, he's going to throw lawyers at this. You can pull a Kohlberger, drag it out 3-4 years, and by then, we may not have a Donald Trump DOJ. You could have, God forbid, a President Newsom or AOC or something. And then this guy's going to bargain for his life, and now he's not bargaining against the death penalty, he's bargaining against life, which means he could get 20 to 30 or something like that and get out. No good. Get him on death row in Utah, expedite it, and do this guy. I'm Paul Moore for the Ops Desk.